His weapon was far too large to rightfully be called a sword. It was larger, thicker, heavier, and cruder than any normal blade. By all accounts, it was no more than a hulking mass of iron.
I wanna be him so bad. I wanna make a Guts cosplay, and I like making props, so I thought to myself, hey, let's start this big ass project with this iconic sword, Dragonslayer. This thing is huge, and I'm gonna try and make this whole thing out of EVA-foam and a PVC pipe. There's also a blueprint for this. Have fun taping all that together. Anyway, let's go. Guts here is 2 meters and 5, and his sword is like 2 meters 40. I am 1 meter 75 on a good day, so I'm gonna scale this sword down to like 1 meter 90, and it's gonna look good. It's gonna be big enough. It's gonna be perfect. Perfect size. Stop. I also want to make it detachable, you know, to take to conventions and stuff. For this build, I'm using the ultra high density foam. Of course, for this I needed the biggest sheet, you know, like the kind that barely fits on a table. I'm using a big chungus PVC pipe of like 4 centimeters. This also means I need like 4 sheets of foam for this just to get to the 4 centimeters. The 2 outer sheets will be 5 millimeters just so that I don't end up with a goddamn refrigerator on a stick. Now this looks ugly as hell, but that's fine. That's normal. It's just part of the process. I'm gonna sand it later anyway. You didn't see shit. You saw nothing. There's just something I want to show you. So this is 4 or 5 layers of ultra high density foam, right? With no core. And it doesn't even need one. So in theory, I could make this entire thing without a core. However, I'm still gonna do it, but just thought it was cool. Anyway, before I get to the final sheet, I need to make the PVC pipe detachable. So I grab a smaller pipe, wrap it in some 2 millimeter foam, and then drill a hole where I want the PVC pipes to connect. Now the deeper the smaller pipe goes into the bigger one, the more stable this whole thing will be. I want this connection to be inside the blade, so I add a rod with some bolts. I like using the bolts with like the blue rubber so that it just doesn't fall off, you know? Kinda important. Once I get that sorted, I glue down the big pipe in the blade using a shit ton of hot glue like a maniac. And then I just glue the final foam sheet on. So now we have a big foam box on a stick. Now you might have noticed that I only cut out the blade part without the edges. This is for a reason. I actually thought about this. Basically, when making a sword, there are some different ways to do this. The first one is the most commonly used one, and that is just you stack foam, you sand it, that's it. It's easy to do and it's very solid. Here are the cons though. Boring. And then we have another method, and that is making it hollow, like you would do with armor. The good thing about this, looks very clean and it's very lightweight. Now I made this cross-section drawing of how to make it hollow, you know, with some supports in it, and I felt really smart about that. And then I found out that SKS Props did the same thing like a year ago, so now I feel like a fraud. Great. Anyway, even though I kind of came up with it myself, he did it first, so credit where credit is due. Go check out SKS Props. Anyway, time to edge. With this cross section, I just have to draw some long ass lines so that I know where to edge. Take your time with edging. If you mess up, it's not the end of the world. Just tell people it's battle damage. Seriously, they'll just eat it up. I mean, it's a sword, what can I say? Now if you're goated with a knife, do it like that. I'm not, so I'm just gonna sand these edges. Once I have these pieces cut out, I figure out how to throw in some supports all over the place. Then I glue the 2 giant parts together. And this is a pretty important step, so I don't want to mess up. The point in the end, I just freehand it and hope for the best. Alright, it doesn't fit the camera, but here's the base of the sword, and it's heavy, as it should be. And normally next up I would say it's gonna be the half circle, but first I'm gonna do something else, and I have thought a lot about this, and that is like give it some texture to the middle part. Now this is like a classic cosplayer thing that some references have it and some don't. I just think it looks cooler with it, so I'm gonna do it. Of course you don't have to. To do it I'm just gonna use a Dremel bit. And it's gonna take a while. Anywho, this sucked. This took me 2 days. But let's say it's worth it, right? Years of training and now I can finally use it. Then comes my favorite part, destruction. I take my knife or a metal brush or whatever you have laying around and I just go to town on the foam. You know, make it look like it's seen some serious shit, hit it with a heat gun afterwards so that it pops out and then heat seal the whole thing to make it look legit. Time for the detachable half circle thingies. There's like this chain going on and I added these using some dowels. You can cut out some like pizza slices to make a 90-degree angle and then you just, super glue it. I made this whole thing so that I can fit it like a glove and I used like a half dowel or bevel, whatever you call it, just to save some time and it really did. Imagine having to sand all that, not me. However, the middle half circle is where it has to be removable, so I make a room with a Dremel and slap on some magnets in there. Boom, stability. For the pommel, I just made a giant foam box and then I thought to myself, man, this looks boring, so I also gave this some texture. Oh yeah, I also had like a final thought that the handle looked a bit too much like a PVC pipe, because it's a PVC pipe, so I glued on some extra foam on there and then sanded the shit out of it. Alright, that's the whole blade done. Now the painting is just really important here, because I wanted to make you feel like you need a tetanus shot for just looking at it. And for this I am choosing the black cos paint as a primer, and I paint it on with a brush and then just roll over it with a foam roller to give it more texture. With a big sword like this, it's all about texture. You want to make it look like it saw 7 wars and a divorce. I gave it 3 layers and called it a good job. To paint it, there are 3 metallic cos paints that I will be using the most. Forged iron, pearly white and panther black. First thing I do is cover the edges with the forged iron and just use the roller again to add some texture. The half circle and pommel I molded it like a dry brush method, because I felt like it, I have no explanation really. Then came the pearly whites, that's for the highlights. Every edge that pops out got pearled, because if you don't highlight this sword, my texture will just look like soggy drywall, so I have to do something about that. I also blackwashed the entire sword, so that means that I took some black paint, added a lot of water till it's basically like a black sad soup, and then slop it on. I just let it like soak for like maybe 10 seconds or like 20 seconds, and then I wipe it off. Because sure, you might think that I just removed everything, but it stays behind in the grooves, and that's what's important. Now it wouldn't be a Berserk sword without some blood, so I'm using the exact same recipe that I use for the Bloodborne cleaver. However, this doesn't have to be nearly as gory, it just controlled chaos with this one. I just apply it on some places that I think would look natural, and I also wipe it off because I just think it gives a nice look. Then finally I add some canvas fabric to the handle and I just burn it off and add some black paint and some blood to make it look cool. I look so fucking cool right now. This thing was so much fun to make, even though it seems like maybe a simple build, but it's just a cool thing, it's cool waving around a big sword. Like I said at the start of the video, I'm also planning on making an entire Guts cosplay, and I'm probably gonna make like 1 or 2 videos on that as well, so if you wanna see those, subscribe maybe. As always, all materials used will be linked in the description down below. Thank you so much for watching, I'm SkyShock, and I will see you in the next one.